Pro wrestling. What does that truly mean? What is the fascination with pro wrestling? Is it the heart-pounding moments, or is it when they pull on the heartstrings in the most brutal of ways sometimes? Well, by definition, pro wrestling really is theater. Some people view pro wrestling as a sport. Some people view pro wrestling as sports entertainment. Some people view it as something else entirely. But no matter how we frame pro wrestling, I can say for certainty that pro wrestling is an art form. And fundamentally, that art form, just like other forms of art, has heroes and villains. Whereas in the wrestling business, we usually like to call that heels and faces. We all view pro wrestling differently. That's why wrestling is so polarizing. Everyone should be able to enjoy this experience and enjoy wrestling for what it is. And that's that wrestling is beautiful. And wrestling is a dance between multiple people that work hard to bring all of their stories to life. And maybe that's just what the world needs right now. More stories like this, and more people to bring those stories to life.
Efren Sojitla.
Stephen Brown.
I'm Aiden Lucier.
My name is Brandon Fulton.
How much do you know about professional wrestling?
A lot more than I should.
Ooh, how much do I know about professional wrestling?
I don't know anything about it, basically. I've only watched maybe a couple games or matches, whatever you call them. I was too young, I don't even remember.
I used to watch wrestling a lot growing up. That was like my go-to. I'd play the games, watch the pay-per-views. Now, I'd say more than the average person, but I wouldn't call myself like an aficionado or anything.
I wouldn't say I know that much about professional wrestling. I'm very much relatively new to it. Like, why are these people fighting? It doesn't really make sense.
I know about wrestling. I know a lot. I grew up with it. I watch all the shows daily, pay-per-views mostly too. So.
What got you into professional wrestling?
When I was, I want to say 4, I just opened the TV up, see what's up, and first thing I saw was Monday Night Raw, and it was, I want to say, Edge was on screen, and it kind of captivated to it, and I just kept watching it because my parents told me not to keep watching it. And ever since they were like, when are you gonna stop watching this stupid stuff? And I was like, never, and I still do. I love it every day. I just bought like tickets for WWE Raw like today.
My dad definitely got me into professional wrestling. I remember growing up, he'd always tell me, when I was your age, I used to watch professional wrestling, and I always wanted my dad to watch it with me, but he wouldn't, so I want to give you that memory. And I remember sitting on the couch, we watched TNA, WWE, and I just remember those fond memories, ordering pizza and just chilling father and son.
Yes, but that also depends on your definition of fake. It is just more entertainment. It's like they're putting on a show rather than just fighting because they're fighting or trying to win. It's entertainment. So I don't see it subtracting from the overall experience, even if it is faked.
I certainly think that there is a fake element to it. I think I'm leaning towards more now that it's more I would call it more acting than fake.
Professional wrestling is not fake. It's predetermined. There's real injuries. You have steel chair shots, falling through tables. You have, for example, Darby Allin. He will dive off a 10-feet ladder and through tables and fall just on the ground. And you can't fake that as much as you want to. You can't. Look, I'm here to watch a show. I'm here to be entertained.
I think fake and wrestling don't belong in the same sentence. While the punches might not be full force, they might not be actually throwing each other off jumbotrons, it's definitely real athleticism. I mean, you see athletes like AJ Styles who just put their life on the line, Darby Allin. These wrestlers are doing real things. And these storylines, a lot of time, can have a lot of real emotion in them. It's not just a script. I think it's in kind of like a renaissance in a way. I feel like professional wrestling in the late 2010s to 2020, early 2020s was a little rough. I feel like now, it's becoming mainstream again. I feel like it's got a lot of momentum. And I definitely want to devote some time and get back into it like I used to.
The current thing that comes to mind is just WWE. That's all I know. And Hollywood actors that used to be or are still wrestlers. But that's basically all I know. I don't know anything else. I don't know any controversies. I'm not into any of it.
I would definitely say my opinion is very positive. I think it's a lot more entertaining now, hearing about all these new people joining, and especially Logan Paul. He's definitely a character. Hearing about him joining WWE, I know John Cena, I know The Rock. Recently, I've been seeing a lot more of Rhea Ripley. She's very much a person that I can see being very popular, especially with her personality and her look. She's very unique.
Professional wrestling is booming, as we can see. Even prices for WrestleMania tickets are going through the roof because everybody wants a piece of it. You have to do merger with UFC, the TKO holding group. So it's definitely going up and up. Especially having two major companies in the US like AEW and WWE. If you can see back in the time when it was the Attitude Era, back in the 90s it was WWE versus WCW. Back in those days, you would say it was the prime of wrestling, and I think we'll reach that again. Storylines, man. It's just stuff that you really can't get nowhere else in any type of show. I cried when Cody Rhodes won the Universe Championship because you see him struggle through all that, and it's multi-year stories that come through. I even got mad when John Cena turned heel, because that's the betrayal of everybody. But it is a storytelling part of it, because they added so much other aspects to it. It makes it so great.
Definitely the wrestlers themselves. I love just seeing them work hours and hours, perfect their characters, their gimmicks, their moves. It's easy for me to root for a certain wrestler, even if they're in a bad storyline. They're a person, but they're going out there, they're performing for millions, they're putting their bodies on the line, and that's what I enjoy most.
Are there any negative things you've heard about pro wrestling, or some controversies?
Where do we start, man? You have so many controversies. I mean, you can start from the beginning, from the very, very beginning, when Vince McMahon's dad was getting all the territories back in the NWA. He did a monopoly of wrestling, and now that's why we only have WWE. They got the steroid scandal back in the 90s, where that dropped Hulk Hogan immediately because, you see him, and he's just raged up on steroids. More steroid cases, you have Eddie Guerrero when he died so young, he was 40-something. It was his heart was just so enlarged from steroids, and it was just not good.
Wrestling and controversy, it goes together like peanut butter and jelly. I could go through a list of so many controversies, but absolutely. You have the Chris Benoit scandal, you have some more under the rug stuff like Rey Mysterio killed a man wrestling.
Honestly, the only thing I know controversial about pro wrestling is just actually wrestlers who've turned into actors. And that's more of a Hollywood issue rather than a wrestling issue.
But I think at this point, all that has helped the professional wrestling business to, make sure we have at least safe standards. That's why you don't see no more steel chair shots on TV. That's why, you have regulated doctors. They have tried to learn from all those mistakes.
Be completely honest, I haven't really seen much of the wrestling media apart from injuries. That's the only really negative stuff I found. I haven't really heard any of controversies or anything like that. At least hearing about them from any kind of media that I have, even today, hearing about them, I think that any kind of publicity would be good publicity for wrestling.
Watch other wrestling promotions?
Yeah, of course I do. I watched New Japan back in the day when it was 2018, Kenny Omega versus Kazuchika Okada.
I had no idea that there were others than WWE before hearing about this shoot.
Besides WWE, I tune into TNA every once in a while. WWE was always my go-to.
Of course, WWE has been the biggest company for as long as I can remember, but even the biggest companies have even bigger rivals. None bigger than WCW in the 90s and early 2000s. Now, the Monday Night Wars were a very controversial time, But unfortunately for WCW, financial missteps, awful script writing, and really bad decisions led to WWE eventually, or back then, WWF, buying WCW out and making the big monopoly that we really know today. Now, it wasn't really until the late 2010s when we finally had a new rival to WWE. Now, that's not to say someone hasn't tried before. TNA tried before, and then they ultimately failed due to some of the same pitfalls WCW had. While TNA is still around today, unlike WCW, they're definitely not as big as they were maybe late 2000s. But someone who is big and growing is AEW. And the introduction to AEW really shook the scene entirely, as a lot of more smaller companies started popping up or getting more prominence in the wrestling media. So, if you had a chance to get into certain other companies, would you watch them regularly like you do, like WWE?
I would definitely try to. I think consistency helps enjoy the product a lot more, and I think indie wrestling has a different feel than pure like WWE, AEW. I feel like these wrestlers, they're different. You know, they're not getting paid hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars. You know, a lot of them, you know, they work their 9 to 5 and then go out and wrestle for fun. And I think you can see some of that love and enjoyment in it.
Now, speaking of alternatives, while AEW and WWE are considered like more of the major companies, we have things called indies. And the indie wrestling scene is more, well, obviously short for independent. The independent wrestling scene is made up of so many tiny companies that have maybe like a little roster, or maybe even some bigger rosters, or even just has a lot of contracted workers who come out and do one-time appearances. These companies really thrive on those independent workers who come in and do things that sometimes guys in the bigger scene aren't even allowed to do. And, you know, a lot of wrestlers that we see now that are big came from the indies. That's how they work their way up to get to the big companies. Here where I live in Wichita, we have a smaller wrestling promotion named HCW, Heartland Championship Wrestling. And there's so many other local wrestling companies around the world and around the United States that I feel like a lot of more people should be privy to. You should be able to go out and see these wrestling companies because you want to support your local wrestlers. Hey, maybe someday your local wrestler that you see wrestle in the dining hall of a school, or the gym of a high school, or maybe even like the recreational center. Maybe one day you might see them wrestling in WWE. You never know. A lot of these promotions, they have free ways to watch them online, or maybe even like a small payment fee. But it's very accessible, and way more accessible than I think people really give credit for. So I think you really should take the time to go look at these companies and see those talents and really get to know them. Because one day those talents can say, hey, I came from Wichita, Kansas. I came from Dallas, Texas. I came from Gary, Indiana. I came from Stockton, California. And that's where my roots are. And you could be one of the people that help them get to the next level. Support your local promotions. We've gone through so much stuff, but I feel like you don't know who I am. Why am I even saying this? Well, my name is Brandon. I'm from North Las Vegas, Nevada, born in 2001, almost 24 years old at this point. Been watching wrestling since I was 7 years old. I remember when my parents got divorced and I would just be in my room alone, and there was a TV in my room. You know, I wasn't supposed to watch TV at that point, you know, usually it'd be late at night, but I would turn on the TV and, well, it'd be TNA wrestling. I'd watch TNA wrestling on Spike TV almost every single day, you know, reruns, or when there was live shows, I'd watch it live. And I'd see guys like Samoa Joe, Kurt Angle, even Jeff Hardy, who would be risking their lives every day and every night. And that's when I thought wrestling was, of course, real. So I thought they were doing all these crazy things, and I was like, I just couldn't believe it, you know? It was something different from all the TV that my parents watched or what my sister watched, because all that stuff was just fake. It was truly an escape from reality and something that I needed at the time. Now, after that, my parents separated. And I didn't really get back into wrestling for some years after that. And funnily enough, the reason why I even got back to wrestling after that, well, there was a couple things. First, I remember going to a yard sale, and they had one game that I was really interested in, because I remember watching wrestling back when I was 7 years old, and I was like, this game is like the wrestling that I used to watch, except different guys. That game was WWE SmackDown vs. Raw 2007. I remember playing that game a ton as a kid, about 10 years old now. I'd be Rey Mysterio beating up The Undertaker. I love that. I love the storylines in that game too. I didn't really watch wrestling though. It was like sort of like something I'd play and like I wasn't interested in actually watching the product. Until I met someone, one of my childhood friends. He loved wrestling. He watched it every single week. He watched all the pay-per-views. I remember watching my first ever pay-per-view live, and that was Survivor Series 2013. And I remember watching the Shield debut and being like, who are these guys? Why these guys come in and attack Ryback and John Cena? You know, what are they doing to my guys? And little did I know that day that those three guys would become three of the most important wrestlers in the industry today. But that pulled me in, and they made me the wrestling fan I am today. And, you know, I loved watching when they were on the grandest of stages like WrestleMania. The intrigue and the appeal, the grandiose, it was all there. You know, wrestling's been there in the hardest of times. The intricate nature of wrestling pulling me in like the best opera. It truly was my favorite form of theater. My sisters, they loved watching musicals, stage shows, all that kind of stuff. My theater was wrestling. It was the thing I could always go back to. And whenever I watch it, it would make the world around me invisible. And that's why wrestling's so important to me. Wrestling makes me laugh. It makes me cry sometimes even. And just like a lot of other media in life, it teaches me life lessons sometimes as well. Some people just look for the drama beyond the ring, but I think the drama in the ring is always more compelling, and it always will be.
So would you be interested in watching some professional wrestling with us and we can show you some matches?
Sure, someone.
Absolutely. I think that'd be great.
Sure, I would be happy to.
Oh yeah, I think it'd be very cool. I mean, I haven't personally watched it a lot recently, but I think seeing the professional wrestlers in action again would be really refreshing and definitely would change my opinion a little bit.
That should be all. So should be a wrap on the interviews.
Sweet.
Would you say that your opinion on professional wrestling has changed?
My opinion on wrestling has definitely stayed positive. Seeing modern wrestlers that I grew up watching, like Drew McIntyre and CM Punk, put on classics is just great. You know, it's just inspiring, and it reminds me that, you know, wrestling isn't just only good in the past. You know, there's still a lot of good modern talent.
My opinion is definitely very positive now. I was a little iffy at first about it, but now actually like seeing it in action and seeing all like the drama and the choreography and just all the action itself, I just thought it was a very fun time watching it.
It's become more positive. Before I was more neutral. Now I thoroughly enjoy it. I will definitely continue watching this in the future.
This is also your first time watching.
First match I've ever seen.
You weren't even here last time.
My name is Isaac, and this is my first WWE match, or a wrestling match ever, really. Yeah, so each of them offered something really unique, in my opinion. That first one, there was a rivalry already there. They just went head to head. They went at it. They already knew how to fight each other. They hated each other. They said, you know, the announcers, they really sold it that these guys knew each other. They hate each other. So when they started going blow for blow immediately, you're like, all right, yeah, they do.
Starting off with the CM Punk Drew McIntyre match, I loved how there was a lot to lose in that match. Going to the Rhea Ripley match, I loved how methodical Charlotte Flair was working on that leg, trying to set up her submissions.
Yeah, the Ospreay versus Danielson fight, that was a really fun one to watch because it was just all flips and stuff and going around with the choreography. Definitely a lot more than I would say than WWE.
I mean, you get to appreciate more of the matches. I mean, you start looking at like
with the Will Ospreay Bryan Danielson match. Like we all know, it's like the best match probably in the past, like of this decade at least. I would say it's gonna be that good. And then you see like the new moves. Like I didn't see the Styles Clash with Triangle. Like that is an insane move to do, and I'm just like, this just shows like how talented people actually are. I mean, I just love it. Like there's like no like way to put in words. It's like it's been with me my entire time.
I thought it would be a good idea, not just to do interviews, but to really have these interviewees experience pro wrestling. So I invited them to see pro wrestling for what it is. Live those moments. Even if it's not live, living those moments can really bring the feeling. There's nothing like watching something extraordinary happen to you live in your eyes for the first time. But no matter what their opinions are now, nothing can change the impact that we've had today.
Yeah, it's not. It's like they were dehumanizing
I didn't
like
get
women.
that.
Shut
Could
up.
you try again?
Siri, are you serious? All right.
Yes.
Keep that in. Keep that in.